With a week and a half until ballots are due, we're checking in on where each of the women running to be Oregon's next governor stand on environmental issues. First, though, a disclaimer. We know there are many other issues on your mind this election season. A survey from the Oregon Values and Belief Center released Thursday found that climate change actually came in sixth on voters' priorities, behind homelessness, housing, affordability, crime, drugs, and inflation. So yes, those things are crucial issues coming up on this election day. But we still thought it was important for voters to know where each of the candidates stand on environmental topics. Scientists have been very clear. We have a pretty short window to act on climate change before some of the worst impacts are locked in, and we're smack dab in the middle of that time window right now. So the policies enacted or repealed by our next governor will really have big consequences for years, if not decades, to come. Environmental reporter Cale Williams joins me now. Cale, walk us through your process of asking these questions and then getting the answers back.
Sure. So we sent each of the candidates a short questionnaire, just 6 questions, about 2 weeks ago on October 17th. We gave each of them a week to respond. Republican candidate Christine Drazan and Democrat Tina Kotek both got back to us earlier this week. Unaffiliated candidate Betsy Johnson's campaign director, she said the candidate wouldn't have time to answer the questionnaire and instead pointed us to Johnson's website where, quote, all of Betsy's positions on climate change and the environment are readily available.
Oh, you gotta love that, said no one ever. But so now that you've heard back from the folks who did want to respond, what was the takeaway?
Well, we'll start with some of the similarities between all 3 of the candidates. Johnson, Kotek, and Drazan, they all acknowledge the threats posed by climate change, and they all agree the state needs to cut its carbon emissions. The similarities don't stop there, at least between Johnson and Drazan. Kotek's approach differs greatly from her 2 opponents, but we'll get to her in just a minute. Both Drazan and Johnson said they would do away with Governor Kate Brown's executive order on climate, and that put a limit on emissions from utilities and industry, and that limit gradually declines over time. The executive order would drive up fuel costs, according to both Johnson and Drazan, and it would disproportionately harm rural and blue-collar Oregonians.
So if both Drazan and Johnson say they want to repeal the state's signature policy on climate change, but they also want to lower emissions, how are they going to do that?
Well, I asked Drazan what she'd replace Brown's executive order with, and here's what she said. I'll replace it with a commitment to work with businesses and legislative leaders to continue to balance opportunities to support a low-carbon future with the needs of Oregonians in all corners of our state. And in response to another question about how she weighs those trade-offs when environmental policy can benefit one constituency and potentially harm another, Drazan had this to say. I'm not supportive of policies that drive up the cost of living while providing little in the way of tangible environmental benefits. I will not advance a climate agenda that risks exacerbating Oregon's affordability crisis.
Although that doesn't really spell out how she would lower emissions. Did she or Johnson address that specifically?
You know, their answers were a little surprising to me. Both Johnson and Drazan have emphasized tamping down on wildfires as a key part of their plans to lower carbon emissions. This is from Johnson's website. The thing that Oregon can do to most reduce our carbon footprint is to better manage our forests, which are burning uncontrollably every year as we fail to do anything about the devastating impacts on our economy, our communities, and the environment. And so Johnson said she would put state foresters to work thinning trees on areas owned by the state and would demand the federal government do the same on federal forests, which account for about 60% of the wilderness in Oregon. For her part, Drazan said she would look to promote innovation in green technologies by reinstating a tax credit for research and development.
Interesting. And according to state regulators, the biggest source of greenhouse emission in Oregon is the transportation sector. Either candidates address that?
Sort of. You know, when I asked Drazan about that, she said she would support low-carbon transportation options and would try to reduce commute times by adding lanes to freeways. Now, that type of thing would probably face staunch opposition from environmental groups who say adding freeway capacity will just invite more drivers to the road.
And what about Kotek?
So, no surprise here, her approach would be very different from her 2 opponents. One of her top priorities, she told us, would be to, quote, protect the progress we've made. And that means keeping Kate Brown's executive order in place. When we asked Kotek how she would balance the benefits of reduced emissions with the cost of higher fuel prices, she had this to say. I am committed to transitioning to a clean energy economy, one that provides clean, renewable energy, grows jobs, especially in rural Oregon, and helps fight the effects of climate change. There's no doubt that our gas prices are too high right now, but let's talk about why. Corporate polluters like oil and gas companies are taking in record profits while they increase prices at the pump for working families. And Kotek emphasized that she doesn't see climate policy as an either-or proposition, either cutting carbon emissions or keeping the economy on solid footing. Here's what she said. As governor, I will be focused on ensuring our transition to a clean energy future also brings targeted investments in good-paying jobs. So, of course, we couldn't fit all of their answers into one TV segment, so we've gone ahead and posted their full responses, plus the questions we asked them, on KGW.com.
It's great stuff. I hope people go check it out. You should watch it, listen to it. Kale's the man. Thanks, Kale.
Thank you.